Good evening and welcome to Social Chatter episode 108. I'm Nick Rishwain here tonight with Christian Karasevich and Mike Alton. Mike, thank you for joining us. Mike and I were just chatting in before we'll call it the green room, although it's not a green room. We were chatting about his adventures in blogging and social media. He is the author of the socialhat.com. Is it socialhat.com and then
social media hat?
The socialmediahat.com. And then on Twitter, it's social media hats, right?
Yep.
Hats plural. Okay. I want to make sure I got those correct. You've been blogging about blogging and blogging about websites for about 10 years and blogging about the social media aspect for about 5 years. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. In fact, you mentioned Green Room. That's one of the things that I missed the most about Google Plus Hangouts. Not all the tech was great. The performance wasn't always awesome, but that Green Room was so convenient to get everybody in, get to know each other, chat before a show, and then go live when everyone's ready.
We certainly do need something like that. Zoom does offer that in they do offer that a bit in the webinar platform, but in the meeting they don't have that. And Christian, he's been running a little late the last few days. Something about him being up at the last few shows. Something about being up at 5 a.m. for the show.
Jeez.
So anyway. And I texted him, I think, too early tonight, so I may have actually woken him up earlier than anticipated.
It's all good. All good.
Christian, how is everything for you on the other side of the world?
Oh, it's great. Fantastic, actually. I have to say it's been a really busy week. I'm just astonished at all of the social media news that got dropped this week. That's actually what's kept me up and what's kept me really busy. Lots and lots and lots of good updates this week, I think, from LinkedIn, from Instagram, let's see, a few from Snapchat. So that's what's been going on. So
yeah, there was a lot. In fact, there were so many that I had to make an executive decision to cut them in about half for the show tonight because I didn't know if we would have time for all of them. So for those items, there's probably 10 or 12, really big updates this week. All of those will be in the blog post recap of the show. So we're going to hit about 5 of the main items. I think we might be able to squeak in a 6th if we're making good time. Mike, I apologize that I didn't tell you ahead of time which ones I decided to cut out.
At least I knew all of them in advance.
Yeah, you knew all of them in advance, and now I'm just going to change up everything on you, and hopefully you know all of these. But let's
talk about MySpace for a while.
Yeah, well,
huge changes to MySpace this week.
Big updates with Friendster and in MySpace. So the first of the articles that we had tonight was this was out of Mashable. And it's about LinkedIn rolling out Snapchat-style geofilters for events and conferences. This is essentially LinkedIn is the latest company to borrow a feature straight out of Snapchat's playbook. So Snapchat, kind of like the cool kid on the block right now, and everybody's copying them. Company introduced a new video feature Tuesday that allowed event attendees to add Snapchat-style filters to videos they create within the LinkedIn app. The location-based filters are part of the service's new in-app video creation feature, which allows LinkedIn users to record and share videos directly from the app. The filters are making their debut at the Grace Hopper Celebration Conference this week, but the company says it plans to make them available for more events in the future. And if you posted this in the comments for people, Christian, it looks like they do look. At least this one for this Grace Hopper celebration looks a little bit more probably professional than many of the more fun aspects of the Snapchat geofilters, but I think it's a decent way for people to encourage people who are at events to post on LinkedIn, right? Because LinkedIn is not one of those you post on Twitter, maybe you post on Instagram and Snapchat when you're at an event, and you even post on Facebook. And LinkedIn, you may post a blog that you write after you attend an event. But there's not a lot of active sharing on LinkedIn while you're attending an event. So I think this is a good probably move for them. I don't know how many people on LinkedIn will be using it in the immediate future. As I've seen, it's just been a small group of people who are either big on Instagram or Snapchat already, or who are active on those, not necessarily big, who are using LinkedIn video. So, Mike, tell us your thoughts on this move.
I think it's brilliant, actually. And to me, this speaks to the larger shift that LinkedIn is trying to make to be more relevant to still a professional audience, but not necessarily focused on employee potential or potential employer, that kind of relationship. It's now moving into people having everyday conversations, people sharing thoughts and opinions more than they ever used to. And so now this kind of thing that they've added on to their live video, to me, it makes perfect sense. It's not, dancing emoji, poop emoji on top of a video. It's still, like you said, that great connection, that professional connection to live events, specifically professional events. And, those of us who attend, or at least are in industries where other people attend those seminars and workshops and so on, there's a certain feeling, a certain thing that happens when you're at these things. You feel a bit special, particularly when there's people at home who couldn't attend.
Mm-hmm.
Like Christian, we go to Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. The years that I didn't go, I really felt like I was missing out. Particularly when we're talking about social media marketers who naturally talk about where they're at and what they're doing more than any other industry. So the people who are there, I think, are going to be really motivated to use this and have a lot of fun with it. And it makes a lot of sense. And for LinkedIn, ultimately, that means more people spending more time on their platform, which is what they want.
Which is what they've had some difficulty with in the past. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've certainly seen my push notifications for LinkedIn since the video option has gone up. I've been getting a lot more activity even on my posts or just push notifications to LinkedIn. Christian, what are your thoughts on this?
I have to say, I agree with both of you in the fact that, one, Nick, I agree with you in the fact that people who are at conferences, at events, they really don't go on LinkedIn and they're not like, hey, I'm at this event and whatnot. But at the same time, I also agree with Mike in the fact that, this is, one, I love the fact that they look very professional. But two, if I'm a business, like, this is something that LinkedIn has to make the shift on. Like, people have always seen them as the digital Rolodex, and my online resume, but they've never looked at them as a social network. So I'm glad that they're also making that switch. Now, a couple of things I think that are also key with this. One, I like the fact, and by the way, this is a feature that Snapchat or anyone else Facebook could even borrow if they wanted to. I like the fact that, for example, if you're at a conference or event, they show the badge for it. But I also like the fact that if you're like a speaker there, they'll also show that as well on your badge. So I think that that's a really smart move on LinkedIn's part. Now, granted, they are holding these, kind of close to the vest right now. They're only working with a few conferences and events on this. But I like this. I really do. I like the fact that it's it makes the video, like, one, I like the word you used earlier. It's professional. Like, that's the thing. Like, you look at all the other, networks and all the other things that are out there, and a lot of them are not, they're not very, like, relevant. How can a business use this? How can a business use that? Like, how is a business going to use, the crying eyes, for instance? Maybe they'll use it, every once in a blue moon. But in this case, this is something you would use for a very specific time period for a specific event. So I really like this update.
Yeah, and with most updates like this on any platform, they usually roll it out to a small group of people to begin with, and so it'll be interesting to see how it improves. And if I'd like to see, because LinkedIn is one of those that's a little bit different than other platforms as far as the wide-ranging ages. I even have members of my company who are all professionals, and they'll be on LinkedIn, but they're not on Facebook, and they're older than probably the average Facebook user. So it'll be interesting to see if those types of that age range, the say 60 and above age range, will really start taking advantage of using these things. So that'll be interesting for me to see. All right, our next story up tonight is Instagram Stories launches cross-posting to Facebook Stories. This came out this week, and we have Facebook Stories might not be a ghost town for long, which it has been very much a ghost town up to this point. After testing in Portugal last month, TechCrunch spotted the option to syndicate your Instagram Stories to Facebook Stories appearing to U.S. users. Now, Facebook confirms this feature is officially rolling out, and everyone should have it soon, if not already. The only exception is businesses, since they're not allowed on Facebook Stories yet. So this is, we've been seeing and following this issue for quite some time, Christian, with, this was another Snapchat ripoff. The Stories feature, and they rolled it out. Facebook rolled it out on Facebook, Messenger, and Instagram. And it seems to have gone a little better on Instagram than I've seen it go on Facebook or Facebook app or the Messenger app. Seems to have taken off some on Instagram, but we've also talked about this being more integration between Facebook and Instagram. And we continue to see moves in that direction. So what are your thoughts on this, Mike? I actually want to hear both of yours before I jump in with my point on this.
Well, I had to laugh a little bit in there. Anytime I read an article that starts to claim any aspect of social media as a ghost town, that nobody uses it, and then it goes on to talk about their personal experience and uses that as the basis for the reality. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. Just because your friends aren't using Facebook Stories doesn't mean nobody else is using Facebook Stories. But I've been fighting that battle for years, and obviously I'm not going to win it. I keep talking about networks that way. But other than that, I thought it was really interesting news. It a little puzzles me a bit because, like you said, Facebook continues, you call it integration between Instagram and Facebook. I'm calling it duplication between Instagram and Facebook. And it seems to me at some point they have to stop. Otherwise, why would I use one or the other? Right. I would just pick one, and I would never open Instagram. I would never open Facebook, because they're the same. I can do live video. I can post stories. I can. We're getting very, very close to being able to post content that has direct links within it, within Instagram. So that differentiation between the two platforms is being blurred.
Absolutely.
And this is just one more step towards that total blurification. Made up a word there for you, of the differences between those two platforms. And I'm not sure that's a good thing. That said, if you're creating Instagram stories, this is awesome for you. Because right now it's only one way. It's only from Instagram to Facebook. They said they're going to explore going the other way. I don't know why they wouldn't if they're doing one. But if you're creating Instagram stories, or if you're thinking about creating Instagram stories, and you have any kind of a different audience on Facebook, which you probably do, this seems like it would make sense.
Christian, what are your thoughts?
Overall, I've been saying this for the longest time, since we started this show, about 3 years ago, like that Instagram and Facebook, like at some point they have to converge, because, what's the purpose behind me being on Facebook and Instagram? In this case, I'm trying to figure out, I think this is going to create a lot of confusion still in the marketplace, because a lot of people, I mean, they're not up to date on a lot of the latest happenings on Instagram or Facebook. It's not about the fact that the feature is there. People just don't have the time to figure out, well, how does it work, and then two, how do I implement this? Or let me rephrase, how does it fit into my strategy? Because in most cases, people don't have a social media strategy. They kind of just wing it, I think, in most cases. And so in this case, I think that, while I'm glad they're going to have cross posting, and I know a lot of people are excited about this, I think that, it's still one of those things where people are going to have to really think about it, say what needs to go from my Instagram stories to my Facebook stories, because not everything needs to go that way. And a lot of people will, I think, easily settle into the whole automation aspect, thinking, oh, hey, it saves me time. I'll push everything from here over to here, and that's less work I have to do versus having a sound strategy.
Right. And this article talked in large part about syndication, right? So that means posting the exact same content on both platforms. Well, then I don't need to see it then I don't need to look at one of the platforms. If I'm seeing what Mike's doing on Facebook stories, then I go over, I don't need to follow Mike's stories on Instagram, and I don't need to follow Mike on Instagram.
Well, and from a business perspective, by the way, what's going to happen there is, if
I don't.
By the way, from a business perspective, if that's actually what's going to happen, it's not necessarily the fault of Instagram or Facebook. It's the fault of the business, because the business is, they don't have a sound strategy. And so what they're doing is they're alienating their customers if all they're doing is posting it the same message on one channel versus the other.
Right. I agree. I agree with that. I also think that part of that Facebook is a Facebook bill for them to, if they're going to just start pushing Instagram stories over to Facebook, essentially, then you're getting the same content on both platforms. So it's not necessarily just the fault of the business or the brand who is doing that. My thoughts on this are sort of, you're probably more accurate, Mike, in your assessment of calling it duplication. Is what do I really need these for? And it makes me wonder. So, I on Facebook, I've got the family and friends and business, and on Instagram and Snapchat, I have different groups altogether, and it's not usually involved with. It does not usually include family members. So I do different content over there. Some of it's very immature, as some of the people who are in here know. And I'm 38 years old. What about the kids who went to Instagram because their parents weren't there to begin with? Do they now want this information showing up on Facebook like that? Does this type of a move just push more people to Snapchat?
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's the supposition behind this idea that Instagram stories are more popular than Facebook stories. And it may be true. I should point out, we don't know.
We don't know that. You're right.
Facebook hasn't said or hasn't released any kind of usage data for Facebook stories, and they have for all their other platforms, which that in itself is kind of a sign maybe things are a little shady. But your point is well taken, because theoretically, Instagram stories are as popular as they are because they're like Snapchat stories, and because they cater to that younger demographic that seem to have been leaving Facebook. So the question is, are they on Facebook and will they use it? Or will the continued evolution of Facebook stories bring them back to Facebook, which I suspect is Zuckerberg's motivation in the end.
I would suspect that's the motivation as well. It will be interesting to see. Does it bring them back or does it push them away? Because I'm not sure and again, you're right. We don't have the data at our fingertips to tell them to make this decision. But it seems to me they were on Instagram for a purpose. And one of those purposes, one of the main driving forces behind that is it's not where their folks were following everything that they were doing. So would be interesting to see. Christian, any last thoughts on this one before we move on?
The only thing I wanted to say was that, I think the other benefit to this is I think interface wise, Facebook is, I think there's a lot more going on there versus Instagram. And so it can be, I think, more difficult to find content on Instagram versus on Facebook. So I like the fact that, that they're pushing this over to Facebook right now. Like I said, like you said earlier, businesses don't have the ability to tap into stories, but I could see that being a very powerful thing if a business, again, has a sound strategy and they could go in and, they have, a planned execution of like, hey, this is what my day is like. Let me share a couple of different tidbits of what we're doing for the day. I think at the same time, that could actually be a really good motivator for a business to have almost like a daily recap they send at the end of the day. Here's all the stuff I put up on stories. It keeps me motivated to let me see what I've done, but it also helps, me also stay engaged with my customers as well.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to our next one. I also want to thank our visitors tonight. We've got Joanne Kroll here, Morris Lilienthal's with us tonight, Nicola Bood, and Nets Wang is with us as well. Thank you all for showing up. And our next story, many of the folks are aware of this one because I watched it in their Instagram stories yesterday, introducing polls on Instagram stories. They introduced interactive poll sticker in Instagram stories that lets you ask a question and see results from your friends and followers as they vote. Whether you're trying to plan tomorrow's outfit, choosing which class to take, or figuring out where to go for dinner, now it's easy to share a 2-option poll. It's only 2 options right now. Yes, no, true, false, you can one or the other. Broccoli or kale is the one that I saw Nets put up yesterday. After you've taken a photo or video for your story, select the poll sticker and place it anywhere you'd like. You can write your own question and even customize the poll choices. After you've shared your poll, your friends and followers can immediately start voting and see real-time results. Once someone has voted on your poll, they'll see which choice is in the lead at any given moment. If they watch your story again later, they'll see the latest results. So, I think this is a fun interactive tool for stories, and I think businesses could have a lot of fun with this. Where I see this being used, restaurants are always a go-to for me with Instagram. I could see painters, if you're a painter or interior design or something like that, and you could put two different sample choices and ask your audience, which one over these 2 sample choices do you guys think? And your audience could help you to choose a particular paint color or a carpeting color or something like that. I think there is a ton of different good that can be used with this poll selection for businesses. Pizza place would be great, with anchovies, without anchovies, things like that you could really have fun with. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Well, I like Nicole's suggestion in the comments that this is Tinder for Instagram stories. Do you want to date me? Yes or no? Not so much of a business application, but I like where you're headed there, Nicole. No, I think it is cool. I think it'll be fun for users. And I think we'll see some really interesting creative ways that businesses come up with and dream up with to implement this. The one that I had off the top of my head was, let's say I want to do a webinar next week and I have a couple different topics that I could talk about. I could let my audience pick. I could tell them, I can do a webinar on Instagram stories, or I can do a webinar on Facebook stories, and they're going to say, Mike did the same thing. But, but I could give them that choice, and that does 2 things. Number one, it helps give me some direction. If assuming there's a winner there, that tells me, okay, my audience is a little more interested in this particular topic, but it also gets them engaged and looking forward to the webinar, built into that process. So I think it could be really cool.
Yeah, I think so. Christian, what are your thoughts?
I love the idea of doing this. I think Mike mentioned, or Nicole, well, let's see. I think all of the examples you mentioned, I think those are fantastic ideas for businesses. If I'm like a pizza place or, I'm trying out a new menu, Mike, I think the webinar idea is fantastic as well. Granted, I think you only have a couple of poll options right now, but I think that over time we'll see that grow. Now, I think that, the other part about this, granted, these do expire. So if you are going to run interactive poll stickers on Instagram, you do need to make sure you look at them before the, what is it,
24
hours, I think.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you look at those beforehand. Otherwise, you won't be able to go back and see them. You also won't be able to see who the people were as well. So a couple of things I think that are going to be very useful for this. One, I think businesses are going to have to get more creative. Like, I think a business needs to start budgeting and saying, hey, you know what? We need to bring on a social media person onto our team to handle this. Not a server, not a hostess. If I'm a restaurant, if I'm a retail business, not somebody who's your stock clerk or whatever. You need to have somebody on your staff that can handle your social media, because if I'm going to be running polls, for instance, I'm going to need access to photos, real photos, and I'm also going to, things that look like personal. And I'm also going to need, though, that data from you as a business owner to be able to think, well, what can we do with this? Because I can't come up with things without running it, for instance, by management sometimes. So I love the idea of this. I actually wish that this would come to Facebook. To have, give me the ability, for instance, to have this during like live video, for instance, and whatnot, without having to have third-party tools that, usually don't integrate very well with that.
Yeah, it's and actually Nets gives us a little piece of information I did not know, because I haven't used the poll yet. She said Instagram gives you a reminder an hour before the poll expires, so you can go and get that data on who voted which way. So I think that's interesting. I think this is good stuff. Let's move on to Pinterest offering brands its visual search technology to score large ad deals. This comes from Adweek. Target collaboration, so the company Target collaboration marks the site's biggest paid media partnership. Now, I think that this visual search technology, it actually made me go and re-download the Pinterest app, because I think this stuff is really awesome. Last week, Adweek's blog, Social Pro Daily, reported on Pinterest rolling out its visual search technology into Target's apps and websites. As part of the deal, Target plans to beef up its ad spend with Pinterest and will test new ad formats coming out of the site. Adweek has learned now that the partnership marks Pinterest's biggest ad deal to date and is rumored to be valued at more than a few $1 million. Pinterest declined to comment on the value of Target's ad spend, but the mega retailer's ads will run as part of a multi-year deal that is deal as the exclusive U.S. retailer using Pinterest Lens. So that's pretty good for being the exclusive is great for Target as well. One of Pinterest's earliest advertisers Target was one of their earliest advertisers, will also receive insights about how consumers use Pinterest that will be used in merchandising products in the U.S. The visual search technology is Pinterest's version of AI and human curation that lets consumers snap a picture of things in real life and find similar items online. So I've got a lamp right here. They can take a picture of it with Pinterest and see images of similar items online. Taking a picture of a red dress, for example, pulls up. I just gave you an example. I'm not going to go into the red dress example. What are your thoughts on this, Mike? Have you kept up to date with this visual search technology?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time at home, so I didn't get to use it very much. But it's really interesting. I mean, this all started with Pinterest Lens, where you could go out and part of the app, you could take a picture. Like, you could take a picture of me right now sitting in my office, and you'd see some Star Wars memorabilia, maybe catch some Legos, and then all of a sudden you'd be seeing recommendations of pins about Star Wars Legos. And so this is a really perfect fit for Target, because now Target's going to build that into their app if they haven't already. I couldn't quite get the timing out of the article. So that now I'm going to see recommendation of things that I could buy.
Right.
And it makes perfect sense. And then that's going to be coupled with Target being able to advertise directly on the Pinterest platform for also people using Pinterest Lens outside of the native Target app to look for things of that nature. They're going to take a picture of their porch and, with the furniture that they have right now, and look for ideas on how they can accessorize it, or their living room and so on. And it's really interesting to see how this overall trend in e-commerce capability is going. With the new iPhone, iOS, there were a bunch of new apps that came out with augmented reality, and IKEA was the one that I downloaded and played with. You know, I could just turn on my camera, my live camera, it's within the IKEA app, and look at my living room, and it would show me how specific pieces of furniture would look in different places. You know, so I actually have IKEA furniture right here, so I could have seen how this desk that's next to me would have looked in the room before I ever bought it. It's really fascinating, and it's really cool to see big brands seeing the potential of this technology and buying into it. I mean, literally buying in.
Yeah, and all we got was that we know that they spent a few $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Few million to me, somewhere in the 3, 4, or 5 range, you know, and so it's a pretty good chunk of money. Christian, any more thoughts on this particular item?
I love what Pinterest is doing. You know, I think Pinterest is. I want to put them in the same class as Snapchat here. You know, and I say that in a positive way. Like, I love all the stuff that Snapchat is doing. You know, they're really pushing into the whole AI side of things. I love what Pinterest is doing here. The other thing that's really, you know, good to note about this is, you know, if I'm, for instance, if I'm Pinterest working with Target, I can have it where it's showing people relevant results based on what's available at Target. I think this is something that needs to actually be in place at a lot of businesses, because here's the thing. A lot of businesses, you know, here's the thing. They open a business and they're struggling. You know, they're struggling with the fact that, like, they open a business and, by the way, did we lose Mike? Oh, there he is. Okay. They open, you know, a business and they don't have the foot traffic, for instance, you know, or they have some obscure items in their business, and they're expecting, you know, basically to be able to say, hey, I've got a business. Like, people are just going to all of a sudden come to it. Mm-hmm. Well, they need to be going out to Pinterest, for instance, in this case, and say, hey, you know what, can I work with you? Because I think that we could really make something positive happen, both for Pinterest and for my business. It doesn't matter if I'm Target or I'm, you know, any other type of business. People always want to know, well, where did you get that at? Or where did you get that at, right? And yes, those personal recommendations come from people, but I think at the same time, you know, that it needs to be almost like it needs to almost be like the skeleton, you know, the framework basically within a business. You know, they need to start thinking, hey, we need a social layer here. How do we, you know, get our products into that channel, or how do we get them out to more people? You know, yeah, we could spend ads, but hey, you know what? Let's do AI. Like, that lets me immediately bring back results based on what people are looking at. You know, whether it's furniture and saying, hey, what are throw pillows that we have, or towels, you know, that go with, you know, a bathroom setup or whatnot. So I think there's a lot of really positive things out there. And I think the other thing that really makes a lot of sense with this is Pinterest has one of the longest shelf lives for content. So when people publish content there, it stays there for months versus most of the other channels, which are minutes or even seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very, very excited about what Pinterest is doing here. I think they're also doing things under the radar. A lot of people are not, you know, they're not looking at Pinterest saying, oh, Pinterest is a viable channel for me. And it is. It should be.
Yeah, it's certainly, you know, I've a lot of their activity in the last 8 or 9 months has really made me look at them more seriously. I can't say that I'm posting content on Pinterest, but I'm really interested in what they're doing. Our last story for this evening, introducing 3D world lenses, a new way to play for advertisers. This is on Snapchat. A week or two back, Snapchat came up with these 3D world lenses, and now they're using it for advertisers. Use 3D augmented reality to bring characters and products to life with Snapchat. Perhaps you've seen their dancing hot dog spinning across the world. He's a new friend of ours and one of our most popular lenses to date. The dancing hot dog was viewed more than 2 billion times on Snapchat, a testament to how much our community loves amazing augmented reality experiences inside the camera. Now you can create yours. We're excited to introduce 3D world lenses, a new kind of world lens that allows you to bring your characters and products to life inside the Snapchat camera. When 1 in 3 of our daily active Snapchatters check out lenses every day, it's a huge opportunity to drive engagement and awareness. 3D world lenses are augmented reality for everyone. On average, campaigns with lenses drive a 19.7 point lift in ad awareness and a 6.4 point lift in brand awareness and a 3.4 lift in action intent. Check out what these brands did. There's a link in there. Anyway, so I really want brands to take advantage of this. What I've seen as a Snapchat, as a pretty common Snapchat user, is I've seen brands taking advantage of ads at the end of stories, which is a really kind of boring way for ads to do what they've always done. They have not taken advantage of the lenses and the geofilters, which is a much more fun way to get people to interact with your content. Bank of America did a llama or a donkey or something like that last year, which was a lot of fun, and a lot of people used that. And I haven't seen very many ads or geofilters since then. These 3D lenses, world lenses, I think, is a way for major brands and even smaller brands in a localized area to really have fun and get a lot of free visibility by people playing with their characters. A lot of companies have mascots, or you can think of the Ronald McDonald type of character that you could build into something like this. So I really would like to see companies taking more advantage, not of running a 10-second snap ad at the end of stories, but really of playing with world lenses and, again, geofilters. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, and I think that's where the trick is, because from what I've seen, it feels to me as though this is an expensive prospect for a business. And it seems to me like it's out of reach for solopreneurs, for sure, for small businesses, probably, for even medium businesses, maybe. You mentioned in that article that there was a link to see how other big brands were using it. And I clicked that article and I looked at those case studies. Interestingly, none of them were actually the 3D worldview lens. They were actually an older style that doesn't take the surroundings into play. And the example that I liked was Budweiser, where they programmed the Bud ball inside the Snapchat. So you actually were able to control the bottles of Bud, and you were able to rush down the field and play like a little game. And they shared some interesting stats about, people were spending, half a minute at least in there, and they had, all these kinds of people looking at it, which I thought was fascinating. But that's Budweiser. I mean, I drive by their plant once a week, and it's massive, and they're making tons of money. They can afford that. Mm-hmm. Can I? I don't know. And so that's what concerns me a little bit, just from that angle, because to me, then that's why we're probably not going to see this all over the place. Right. Because it seems like there's going to be an initial investment to create the experience, the environment.
Right.
I don't even know how that works. And then, of course, the cost going forward, to pay Snapchat to put it out there.
Right.
For big brands, it's fascinating, and it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and Nat says down in the story, she said, I would tap away from ads, which I think most of us do. It's a rare occasion that I'll watch an entire ad, and usually they have to make it a little bit mysterious. I have no idea what they're talking about, so I stay for the entire 10 seconds. But she said she'd tap away from ads, but would put in time to play with the lenses and consider incorporating into her stories. And I think that is what I noticed a lot with the lens, the llama or donkey lens that Bank of America did. I saw that in a lot of stories on Snapchat when they did that last year. So, Christian, what are your thoughts?
I really like the idea of, I like the concept of being able to have a 3D lens that if I'm a business, for instance, I can slap a label on anything. For example, right behind you, for instance, if you want to put your logo up, love the idea of being able to have something like that. If I'm, a mascot, like I love the idea as well. Like if I'm a university, college or university, I could have a 3D world lens that people could put up in their snaps when they're at, games and whatnot. Like there's stuff to tie into like rivalries or whatnot, but I also, side with Mike in the fact that these seem very pricey.
Yeah.
The only people that are going to use these, for example, if I'm like, if I think ET came out with the 35th anniversary, I think it was, or 40th, whatever year it was, a new release of a DVD or something. They came out, they had a specific lens there for that, which was fantastic. But it's only useful if I'm a big brand that can afford these things. I look at it and I say, well, hey, how can somebody create these? For instance, if I'm a business, can I actually create, just something rudimentary, to be able to tap into this? It's not going to run me a ton of money. That's one thing I look at. But I love the concept of this. I just wish that it were more attainable for, I think, a lot of businesses.
For a smaller business. Yeah, and I think that's fair. Although, I feel comfortable in making an assumption here that oftentimes when they roll out a new product for advertising, they target it, and they are a public company, so probably they're going to target the bigger ad buyers first. Yeah. And if they notice that this is a valuable option, then maybe they'll do like they did with geofilters, where you can geolocate a world lens to, okay, well, we're at Social Media Marketing World. Mike wants to have his cool new fedora lens with a little dancing fedora guy, and I won't hold you, Mike. If you steal that character, I waive rights to that.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, I waive rights to that character if that's what you end up doing.
You can dancing fedora.
But that type of thing. If you could do it for a short period of time, location based in the future, and then I could see this becoming something that is more likely to be attainable for smaller companies. But you can understand from their position, let's roll out to the big dogs first and see if we can bring in some sales.
And that's absolutely right. I mean, you're right. They have to bring in revenue. If you're Snapchat, they're a publicly traded company, so they do have to have, they do have to kind of be, beholden to their shareholders there. While we might think it'd be awesome to have some of these. Overall, I mean, these are, you can use them within your Snap Ads Manager. So I think it's business.snapchat.com, I think it is, that people can go to. Let me see something real quick. I think it's business.snapchat.
Oh, it's business.
Business.snapchat. Let's see. Yeah. And they'll actually redirect you to their advertising platform. So that's how you can go about getting started with these. I think at the same time, if I'm a business, I need to start thinking creatively, what kinds of things can I do, possibly, with a lot of these tools that are available. I need to also think about my budget. I need to also start setting aside money for a business, to have advertising dollars, because a lot of people, they don't have advertising dollars. They want to do all this stuff and they're like, well, hey, I don't have the capital, or they're putting all their money into a lot of other things that might not be as important.
Yep.
By the way, the other thing I also was thinking with this is, would Snapchat also be kind of going the route of Apple, which is having the premium product with the premium price tag? Because I think 3D World lenses are very different from what you typically get on your other channels for advertising options.
Yeah, that's a great point, because again, we're talking about Snapchat, which means we're talking about a different demographic than say Facebook or LinkedIn. Right. So we're talking about mostly younger users. And that means something. That doesn't just mean their buying habits, but that means, they have a different relationship with brands than older consumers tend to have. And I do think this is a really interesting opportunity for some brands who can take advantage of that, like say GoPro. Right, where people like talking about the fact that they have a GoPro and they're proud of that, and they wouldn't mind sharing and using a lens that GoPro maybe provides them. So maybe GoPro makes it look like you're surfing when you're just standing in your office. GoPro, you can take that. So so they can, and they would create stuff like that, and the users would love it.
And by the way, the other thing also with this, so this would coincide with, let's use GoPro as an example. GoPro just launched the Hero 6 this past week, and they launched a couple other versions of their device. I think it was forgot the name of the other one, but they launched a couple different cameras this week. So it makes sense if I'm launching GoPro, maybe I have something, for instance, if I want to drive more adoption, include something in the box, for people getting the physical product, to encourage them to go on their social channel and say, hey, we're happy that you got your GoPro Hero 6. Please, head over to our Snapchat, head over to Snapchat and, we'll have a specific filter there, for instance.
Yeah.
Or actually, I think it would be really cool even, I know this is really kind of out there, but what if I had the GoPro box and there was something in the box that would be able to, like, almost like a beacon that could trigger the fact that, like, hey, I have a GoPro physically here, and you could then give me a specific lens knowing that I have the actual item there. So I know that's way out there, but something to get
far out there, though. I mean, is it that far out there to say that we're going to see these same sorts of augmented reality lenses on Snapchat in the next couple of months? It's it's not that. I think a lot of these items are a lot closer than we think. So I don't think that's that far out there, Christian. That wraps up the stories tonight. I'm glad we cut those down, Christian, because we're at 46 minutes in. So there were so many stories this week, everyone. So make sure to check out the blog post for blog post recap at socialchefs.com. There will be a repost. There's about 6 other pretty major stories in the social realm.
Yeah.
Christian,
we had some updates. Well, before we get the updates, I just want to give everybody a heads up. We had updates about, Facebook is testing facial recognition. We talked about that over on the blog. We've got YouTube Studio updates. So if you manage a YouTube channel, you're going to like these updates because you can do a lot of it from your mobile device. And then I think we also
huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing I also thought was really good was a new WordPress update for WordPress.com users. One of the biggest challenges I think is, your photos are all over the place. And so WordPress.com is now allowing you to use Google Photos in your WordPress.com site when you're creating your blog post. So that's going to be very useful as well. So check that out on the blog. It's socialchefs.com/blog. So let's get to some tools. Okay, so let's see. So for tools, we've got 2 tools for you tonight. The first one is Enlight Videoleap. Now, for those of you, there's no shortage of video applications out there, video editing tools for your mobile device. But typically what you end up with is you end up having one that does, it's a video editor, and the other one might be for green screen, and the other one might be for, adjusting color and tones and whatnot in your video. So Enlight, they make a video photo app as well, by the way. But Videoleap is essentially a mix of, I want to say amateur, but we'll use amateur, I guess. Amateur and professional. I'm reading their description actually here. It actually says features while amateurs will have, But here's the thing. Enlight Videoleap, it is an app for amateurs. So it's got the ability to have your basic, let me just combine some clips together and add some transitions and now put together a great video. But it also has a lot of pro features. And those pro features are, for example, you have the ability to do green screens in here. So, not just mixing videos, you can add text and emoji, but doing green screen editing right on your mobile device. Green screen editing, by the way, is where you take a solid green background and then you can basically replace that background with something else. In this case, you can do it right on your mobile device. And that's not something you can usually do. The only other app I know costs like $20-something. So in this case, this one's actually a free app, but it also has some other neat features. I think one of those is the ability to, they call it colorify parts of your clips. I would call it masking. So for instance, what you do is, let's take Mike's hat here. Say we want to change it from this, this cream color to red. We would basically be able to mask out his hat in video on our mobile device and then change the color of that and still have it, when he moves around and whatnot, stay within that sequence. So that is the first app for everybody today. It's called Enlight Videoleap.
Mo, in a private message to me while we were on this, mentioned that I have an orange shirt on and a white background, and it looks like I am broadcasting from prison tonight. Maybe we could go ahead and put the green screen with some bars in the background. But at least I would be here and be consistent, which we all know is the most important on social media, is to be consistent. So even from prison, guys, I'm still doing it. So
that's dedication.
That's dedication.
So, and by the way, that's actually really funny. So that's the first tool for everybody today. And by the way, I'm trying to get these links in there for you to go check these out. The second one is this one's called Animaker. And this is actually a really neat app. I would say it's more like a desktop app. It's, it's playing off the whole video editing thing as well. But what this is it's a way for you to make animated videos yourself. So, you don't have to go in, you don't have to go hire a video editor. Animating, doing any sort of animation is a very, very, very expensive project in most cases. There's a lot of like, how do you move, the character from here to here? In this case, by the way, Mike, this could actually be something where you could almost create that, the dancing fedora. Or you could start with it, it could be the first concept. But this is an application where you can go in, you can, you get lots of different options to choose from for different types of videos. You can create explainer videos. You don't have to be like, hey, I'm on camera talking about my product. I can actually show you with a really fun video. So that is Animaker. Animaker, by the way, it is available as a free application. So you can go in, you can create a 2-minute video with a certain number of exports, certain amount of quality. If you want to jump up to having a longer video, because by the way, you don't need a 15-minute explainer video in most cases. 5 minutes or less is typically good. But you can go in, you can get 5-minute videos with unbranded videos. So that basically removes the Animaker logo. Costs you $9 a month. If you buy it annually, that's less than $100.
Nice.
Or so that's $108, I think, actually. So those are the two tools that I have for everybody this week. Mike, have you used any of these at all?
Nope. I've used the image version of was it Enlight? A couple of times. I don't create a lot of video myself, but I thought their video app was really interesting looking. Knowing as I do that the standard video applications, like I use iMovie because I have that on my Mac. It's nice, but it's extremely limited when you want to do next level stuff like floating text and incorporating and merging some video and that sort of thing. So that app already looks way better than iMovie. And you're right, now I got to go try to make a dancing fedora in an animated movie. That's awesome.
I mean, it's
very cool.
It's going to make the money come in, so it's just going to pour in, Mike. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be upset that I gave away the rights to that. Mike, that finishes our stories for tonight. How do we spell your last name so people can find you? Is it Alton?
2 L's, Allton, and I'm at thesocialmediahat.com.
And go to post that down below. There we go. So thank you, Mike, so much for being here tonight. Great input. Again, going to be sad that I gave away the rights to the dancing fedora, but I hope that it's good for your business, and you maybe could give me a testimonial over on LinkedIn or something someday.
Yeah, try and get you out of prison.
Pay the bail. Christian, any last minute thoughts before we wrap up for the evening?
Just want to let everybody know next week's show, I think we're going to be on Zoom. We've got, we're making some changes to the Facebook Live portion of this. So we're going to be on Zoom. We're going to have Jed Record on next week. Jed is Jed's a friend of mine, but we're going to have him on the show next week as well. Mike, I think you know Jed, right?
Oh yeah, Jed's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to have Jed on next week. Show is at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. So can't wait to see everybody there. But anything else, Nick?
No, that's it for me, guys. I'm going to wrap it up and go get some rest, try and get over this cold.
Sounds good. So thanks a lot for joining us, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Night. Bye.